Okay. Well, I was in the wood shop and I was trying to think of something that the students could do to create something of value out of scrap wood. Some of the students didn't have money to buy wood, to buy an expensive table and use an expensive wood like mahogany, cherry, walnut, or something like that. So you can just go to the scrap box and pick out the right scraps and create something of your own vision. And if you make it good enough and it has value, then you can sell it for money. And I'm going to pick up this magazine on my desk. I just saw a wooden doll on this magazine. So we're going to make this doll out of the scraps. And that's kind of how I got started. I started working on this McCall's magazine doll, and it happened to be, when I read it, it happened to be a Victorian peg-jointed doll. And I didn't know anything about dolls at all. So I just said, well, I'll go ahead and carve this doll. And it was so interesting that the students, when they would come into the shop the next day, they'd say, Mr. Bell, did you carve the doll? I said, yeah, I did a little bit. And I'd put the joint together. Happened to be a mortise and tenon joint, and just drill a hole through it and put a peg in there. And you had a piece of wood that would move, and we made a peg jointed arm. And then we'd do the torso and the legs, and it all came together to look just like the doll that was in the magazine. There would be teachers and principals and janitors, and everybody would come by, and they'd stick their head in the door and say, hey, Bill, how's that doll coming? You know, and they'd come to the desk, and I'd be picking up my stuff to go home, and we'd go over the doll. And it was so interesting. It was happened to be in my desk at night school when my night school class came in, and they were like, "Where's the doll? Where's the doll?" And there were several ladies in the class, and they were all wondering, when you get this doll done, who's going to make the dress? Because it had this beautiful green and gold dress on. And I said, well, we'll wait till that. We're just trying to get the wood doll together. And then one of the ladies she was from Germany, and she was a seamstress, and she said, well, you have to make a pattern for the doll, and you have to go ahead and you have to stitch it all by hand, because the doll's dress was handmade. So she took the doll and she made the handmade dress for it, and it just turned out just beautiful. So after I started doing shows, I wanted to get the kids involved with what I was doing, and I would have them to come visit some of my shows with their parents. And then I said, well, Cultural Interiors invited us to come and show our dolls at the Cultural Interiors, and they had a month every year. They have a month where they would show dolls, so we can bring our dolls that we made. And it would take the kids the whole semester. You know, at the end of the semester, the Cultural Interiors would come up, and we would all go over and take our work, and their parents would come with the kids, and the people that came to see the dolls that I made and other doll artists that were making, well, they made mostly cloth dolls, you know, and they would get a chance to see their work, and we could all sit there and show our work. And the ladies were looking at these handsome young men, and they were coming up taking pictures with the guys, and I don't know if they were looking at the dolls or looking at the guys. At the guys, it was so funny. But we just had a good time at the show, and the Cultural Interiors was kind of a tight packed little place, and we were all in the aisles, and we just take over the whole show, and some people were standing outside, and we just had a nice good time of showing our work. And I'm always so proud of the kids to actually see their faces, and then actually see people that actually bought things, you know, that they made. And that's what my class was all about, you know, to teach kids how to take something and it could be from scrap in a scrap box, and they put their own identity to it and their own creativity, and they actually made something that they could sell for money. And some of the kids would not sell their work. They were like me. I keep a lot of my dolls because I like collecting my own work. I like to live with my work. Brought my dolls back home. I told my kids, I said, got my doll. I got a green ribbon in the novice category. And the kid said, oh, Mr. Bell, that's not that great. You should be getting a blue ribbon. I said, well, next year I'm going to carve a doll and take it to the Wally Boulder show, and we're going to see if we can get a blue ribbon. And they said, well, Mr. Bell, why don't you have NIADA take a look at your doll? And I'm saying, well, who's NIADA? And they're saying, well, they're the top doll makers in the world. There's about 50 artists, and they can critique your dolls. And if you have any skill and ability, then you might even be able to try to get to be a member. I finally got a call from a lady up the coast, and her name was Martha Armstrong Hand. And she was a member of NIADA, and she asked me if I would show my dolls, and I said, well, they're having a show right here in Los Angeles at William Grant Still Community Center, and you can come and you can see my dolls. So she drove all the way from up north. I think she was around Camarillo or somewhere, all the way down to William Grant Still just to see my dolls, and she was impressed. And she wrote me a letter, and I still have that letter. And she was trying to encourage me to actually do better. And I thought my doll was so great. But when I went to that NIADA critique, there were about 15 of us in line. And they all had porcelain dolls and different kinds of dolls. And I had my little wooden James Beckworth doll. And the president of NIADA, she came strolling by, and she looked at my work. He said, your work is awful. You can do better than that. And she walked away. And so I asked one of the artists who was standing there doing the critique, I said, who was that lady? She said, oh, that's Susanna Orion. She's the president of NIADA. I said, oh, Jesus. She said, my work is awful. They said, oh, don't worry about that. She said that about everybody's work. She said, are you coming back next year? I said, yeah, I'm coming back next year. I said, because they don't have a black member of NIADA, and I want that there should be a black member of NIADA. And so I'm coming back. Sister Act, the set was in Los Angeles, and it was a church on Olympic Avenue, and that's where she filmed it. So my friend, he was an Academy Award-winning hairdresser, and he was doing her hair for the movie. And they were in the bungalow talking about dolls, and he said, you ladies don't know anything about dolls. He said, I know the world's greatest doll maker. And they said, you don't know. He said, Floyd Bell is the world's greatest doll maker. She said, well, have him bring some dolls to the set. So I took a trunk load of dolls to the set, and she bought them all. We were in the kitchen of the set where they were filming the movie. So she bought all these dolls. They say she spent about $1,600 for those dolls when she wrote out a check for the whole thing. It's deeper and deeper because because they were filming the movie, and then the producer came in there and said, Whoopi, what are you guys doing talking about dolls? He said, we got to get back on the set. We got thousands of dollars held up here, and you're sitting up here looking at dolls. She said, don't you see me talking to the world's greatest doll maker? This is Floyd Bell.
That's good.
a chapter meeting of Tuskegee Airmen. I got there early, and as the airmen came in, I asked them to take a look at my P-51 because Ted Lumpkin had invited me to the meeting. So they came over to the table. As they came in, they take a look. Oh yeah, that's a P-51. That's what we flew. I said, would you sign the wing of my airplane? And oh, sure. And that's how I started collecting signatures. I have a great story of the Tuskegee Airmen because one was a woman. Turned out she was a nurse, and all the people on the base at Tuskegee, if they worked in that program, they were designated as original Tuskegee Airmen. So when she signed her name, she put her name and then she put DOTA in parentheses. So I asked her what that meant. And she said that's designated original Tuskegee Airmen. Ted Lumpkin was a tennis player and partner of mine, and his signature's on there too. You know, in my shop, I did most of my career in the shop, and I had a wood shop, you know, a huge shop. But at home it's kind of confining as to what I can produce. Yeah, I had the whole summer to work on anything that I wanted to, you know, and then that way I was able to do some things. Now, the Wadobis all have ball and socket joint, and they're spring jointed. They don't have peg joints. They're spring loaded. Yeah. When I got on Facebook, I started talking to people, and a lady called me and asked me if I would make a doll for a child. And I said, oh yeah, I can carve something like that. So she sent me a photograph of this beautiful young girl. That is Jelyutong. Good size for this would be about 6 inches. I'll do it in a hitty style, and I use the same joints. And I usually use ball joints for the top of mine, and then I use peg joints for the torso. And I usually carve my hair, but she's got such beautiful, beautiful locks. I made a nice little wig to put on her. I have processed photographs of Pinocchio where I was sawing that Jelyutong into workable pieces on a bench, and then different parts and I was sawing them with a handsaw. And I have a series of photos that show me working on Pinocchio. So that's like a whole story on him, you know. I also have the plans for him. So when you talk about sizes with me, I don't like to restrict myself to any certain size because I believe that the more variety you have, the better. So when you look at my body of work, I'm in all sizes from 1.5 inches up to 42 inches tall, you know. So to me, it just expands my horizons, you know, what I can show and the different dolls that I can do. And when I walk through a doll show and see a doll of a certain size or something like that, or if I go through an antique show and see a dress that can accommodate what I do, I might buy the dress and carve the doll to match, to fit the dress. And I had a lady that I met at Quinlan's show she used thread to make the outfits, you know. She crocheted all the outfits for those dolls. That's what sparked me to make them. So I said, well, I'll carve some wooden dolls, and you can stitch up some outfits for me. And that's what we did. And so I must have made a dozen of those over a period of time, you know. Megan falls into the category of when I see a nice outfit that I can get my hands on, I go ahead and buy it, and then I make a doll to fit the dress, because that doll is about 24 inches tall, and the accessories are immaculate. So from time to time, members of our club will make something for the doll club, Crescent Bay Doll Fanciers. And I said, well, the doll club should have a club doll. Our club's named Crescent Bay Doll Fanciers, so I'll name the doll Crescenda. I told the club that I had a gift for them, and we were going to do a workshop, doll heads. And then we put them on a string, like a lariat around your head. You could adjust it. And then when you go to conventions or something like that, you can wear your doll pin. This is all material that I had left out from Pinocchio. I did a horse, I did a car. This car was carved out of a solid block of Jelutong. I took it to a Grand Prix in Hollywood, and they were doing antique cars. And when I took it up to the desk, the guy said, "Where'd you get that car?" I said, "I carved it, you know." I said, I'm a doll carver, and I carved my Duesenberg. And they made a license plate for my Duesenberg. Tony said, "Grandpa, I want you to make some pretty dolls." And I said, "What do you mean, Tony? All my dolls are pretty. My American Heritage dolls, they're beautiful." She said, "No, I want you to make some dolls like, you know, like," and she pointed to Barbie, the Barbie dolls that we bought for her that was sitting on the shelf. So I said, "Okay, Tony, I'll carve you a Barbie doll." So I carved her one, and then we started talking about it. We started dressing it, and then we said, "Well, we can create a series of these dolls, and we'll call them Tony Fashion dolls. I'll make them in resin, and then we can cast them and paint them, and then we can start a little Tony Fashion doll movement." And that's what we did. And we made some beautiful Tony Fashion dolls. She was about 8 years old, and she's 31 years old now.
Okay.
So I made Tony Fashion dolls about, maybe 5 years. Tony and I would sit together, and I would do the ones where she was working on were the wooden dolls. And when we get the pieces, we would sand the pieces and go through our little process. She liked to do that, and she liked to do the hair. And then we would get wigs and put on the doll, and she could do the hair. Tony and I, she was about 8 or 9 years old at the time, and we met a lady that made beautiful, beautiful Barbie clothes. And she became Tony's fashion designer. And she and Tony would get together and design fashions for Tony fashion dolls. And we had angels, we had all kinds of different styles of Tony's. Her name was Anita, but I don't remember her last name. She was only one of the people that we actually started, because when you walk through the Barbie convention, there were many, many ladies that made those dresses. And Anita was one of the ones that would actually make the dresses to Tony's specifications. So that's what made her special. I made about 10 or 12 wooden Barbies, and then I sold some of them. I was selling them for like $1,000 each for the wooden originals. And then I said, well, maybe you better keep some of those. So I kept 4 or 5 of them, and I still have them now. And they're very nice to look back on that event, and you got some of the original wooden dolls. But I have another little story. I made a doll for a movie called The Tin Soldier. And I would like for you to see that movie, and then I can show you the doll. In that movie, Jon Voight, he's like, it's a beautiful story, and doll people love it. Jon Voight was the Tin Soldier. Okay. And then there was a beautiful lady that was the ballerina. So Jon Voight, he was at this shooting in Hollywood, where I took some students to Hollywood to show my dolls, and he came in the room, and when we finished and asked, did I carve dolls? I said yes. He said, well, I need somebody to carve a doll for me for a movie. And he said, yeah, he said, I have pictures of the ballerina, so I have beautiful pictures of this ballerina. And he gave it to me, and I made the doll's head out of Sculpey clay, and I got myself a generic ballerina body, and I whacked it on there, and I had 3 days to complete it, made the outfit and made the doll. And he used it in the movie. And then when the movie was finished, he gave me the doll back. Yeah, well, like with Eva Heffel, I remember that name because that was definitely a collaboration of a person from Alaska that could make an authentic outfit, so that's a whole different story right there. She's indigenous, and she made her dolls out of indigenous materials that you can't even buy in the United States. I actually had some people come from Alaska to visit my classroom at Westchester High School. and they came to visit my class, and I asked the gentleman, could he make me a slave for Matthew Henson? And he went back home, and he actually sent me a sled for Matthew Henson. We have a miniature sled made in scale for Matthew Henson by an indigenous woodshop teacher in Alaska. So I was asked to make a doll for the White House to go on the Christmas tree. In the year 2000, Hillary Clinton was decorating the White House and all the grounds for her annual Christmas party. And she had artists make different kinds of ornaments for the tree. So she actually got in touch with Susanna Orion from NIADA and asked her if she could have one of the artists make a doll for her Christmas tree in the Blue Room at the White House. And they sent me the information and a letter from the White House and an invitation to come to the White House in their request. And so I said, well, sure, I'll definitely make that doll. And I talked to my wife, and my wife said, well, we could go, you know. I said, oh, that's a lot of money. So I said, but I think it's important enough. If we could go to the White House, I think it's important enough. So I got my wife, and I told my son, I said, well, I'd like to take Tony to the White House with us, and because it would be educational for Tony. So we said, well, yeah, we're gonna carve this doll for the Christmas tree, and she wanted a historical doll. And that's the reason I was picked, because I did Floyd Bell's historical wooden dolls, and I did a Harriet Tubman, and she said, well, that's the one I want. I want the Harriet Tubman doll. So I carved the doll, I sent it to Washington, D.C., and at Christmas time, we all went to the White House to be able to have a doll in that Christmas tree was actually so special. And when the event was over, I asked what happened to the doll, and they told me that they put it in the library, in the Clinton Library in Arkansas. Hillary sent me a picture of the Christmas tree in the Blue Room with she and Bill standing in front of it. Sometimes we wonder what inspires an artist to do dolls in the likeness of other people. I met a lady, her name was Cynthia Davis, and they would test all the ladies for AIDS. And during the time they were testing, the kids didn't have anything to do standing outside of the testing facility. So she decided to make little dolls for the kids to play with while they were sitting and waiting for their mothers to come out. Cynthia Davis is a member of my doll club, so I kept up with her. So one day she asked me if I would make a doll of Museveni, and she was going to present it to him. Museveni, his wife, and Dr. Penny, a close aide to Museveni. She sent me 3 photographs, and we copied the costumes down to a T. I have a lady in my dog club, Sandra Rogers, and when I want to make something kind of special, I get Sandra to make the outfits, and we matched up the material, the fabrics, and everything. Condoleezza Rice, well, this is a job for Charlotte Semple. Charlotte Semple is one of my favorite seamstresses. Condoleezza Rice, very fashionable, and Charlotte Semple picked out this beautiful paisley kind of material, because Charlotte she puts her heart into every piece that she makes. This is a great thing. I could make a doll of Barack Obama. And then we got to see photographs of Barack. And then Michelle, we found out how beautiful she was. And then in her inauguration, she wore this beautiful white dress. So I said, this dress is fabulous. Sandra Rogers, another member of my doll club, and she makes all kinds of beautiful outfits. So she actually got fabric and made the outer flowers on Michelle's dress, individually made each flower and applied it to the dress, and it made just a beautiful, beautiful outfit.